It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Neppy. This hour, we are meeting the future of public media, aspiring journalists who recently participated in a 5-day workshop coordinated by NextGen Journalism, where they were paired with a professional mentor, and they learned how to report and produce non-narrated audio features and a companion multimedia story. Each participant was asked to produce a story that focuses on a moment of truth. First up, Nev Kelly is here. She is a recent graduate of Oberlin College, where she studied English, environmental studies, and writing and communication. And she currently works as a production assistant for the talk show team at Iowa Public Radio. Hello, Nev.
Hi, Charity. Thanks for having me on.
It's wonderful to talk with you. And what made you want to be a part of NextGen Journalism?
I really just wanted to immerse myself in journalism, in multimedia journalism. I feel like I have a lot of good experience working with audio since starting here at IPR, and not so much experience doing actual reporting. And I also wanted to get some experience taking photos and photojournalism, and we also have some video elements going on in this program. So I really wanted to just immerse myself in it all and start getting good at a lot of different things.
So we will listen to your piece in just a moment, but how did you identify the story that you wanted to tell?
Yes, so it was very nerve-wracking at first when I found out that I was a finalist for the program. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what kind of story I want to tell. But I naturally gravitate towards arts and culture stories. They really excite me. I'm something of an artist myself, and I just like hearing about people's journeys through art and different things like that. So I started looking around different places in the area.
In Iowa City.
In Public Space 1 in Iowa City and other art spaces nearby, and looking at different people who host workshops there. And I found Astrid through that. I think I found her through a program she hosted, I think I found her through a workshop she was hosting about indigo dyeing. And I found her website, and she had a really unique story on there about her sustainability initiatives and her sustainability goals. So I wanted to talk to her, find out a little bit more. I also studied environmental studies in college, so it felt like a good crossroads for me.
Okay. And as I mentioned, we'll hear the piece in just a moment, but Astrid Hilger Bennett is an Iowa City-based artist, and she focuses on sustainability in her work now. That's something that's developed for her over time. It's such a difficult challenge to identify someone who has a definable moment of truth. Did that feel like a big challenge to you?
It did. And honestly, her moment of truth did not end up being this big defining moment. She described it to me as more of a gradual thing that's built up over time. And she's always had sustainability in mind and always tried to be considerate of her environment. But she described to me during the COVID-19 pandemic, all of these things came together, and she was like, I really need to do something about the work that I'm producing, or else I think I need to scale back what I'm doing because there's too many things in the world.
Yeah. So now that you are at the end of your experience, what do you think you've gained from NextGen journalism?
I think I've gained a lot of confidence above all else. I think obviously got the hard skills, learned, reported a story, turned the story around in a couple of days, which is something I haven't had a lot of experience doing. And I feel like the work that I've done has been really strong, and I just feel really confident, and this program has given me that confidence and made me feel capable that this is something I can continue to do in the future.
And what are your hopes for the future?
I would love to be a journalist. I would love to be an audio journalist, multimedia journalist, and tell different stories. I love telling stories of arts and culture, so maybe something of that nature, but maybe also working on talk shows. I've loved my time here working as a production assistant for the talk shows, and I would love to tell a number of different stories in the future.
Well, Nev, I'm so glad you had this opportunity. And this is Nev Kelly. We're going to listen to her story featuring Iowa City artist Astrid Hilger Bennett, she has spent her life creating artwork, but began to worry about how much waste her work produces. During the pandemic, she reflected on her work and decided to find a way to keep producing art with a focus on sustainability. Now, almost all of her artwork is sustainably made with a purpose, and she sees her work as a small driver of environmental social change.
These are the drawings I did last year of plants, and then I dyed fabric and made inks out of each one. So there's different plants like Dyer's chamomile, false indigo, black walnuts. My name is Astrid Hilger Bennett. I'm an independent artist. I am mostly focused on the visual arts. So I studied it in college. I studied printmaking, and my last semester in college, I went on to study textile printing, and from there went to weaving and other textile processes. I consider it to be my fourth child. It screams and hollers if I don't pay it attention. So even while I was a really busy person running and co-owning a contemporary gallery, I made time for doing my studio practice. The moment of truth, so to speak, for focusing on functional artwork actually wasn't quite a moment, but more of a slide into a realization. As an artist, I have been deeply involved with the natural world. So one of the things that I feel is important for me right now is not to add substantially to an overabundance of things in the world. So one of the things I think about is that I make my large pieces functional. And that's something that I really came to think about more during the pandemic. And when I say functional, it's kind of humorous, but serious in that I think, well, in some dystopian future, we can use these pieces as warmth or tarps to cover things. They have dual purpose, and it's better than storing a painting somewhere deep in a closet. What I have done, too, is to think about the dyes that I use. There's the question, should I be using chemical dyes or should I try for natural dyes? So during the pandemic, I went into a studio art natural dye home residency, and I started studying indigo. This is organic indigo. It is raised as a plant and then fermented. It's really fascinating. You put in a piece of fabric that is wetted down, and in the dye vat it is green, and you pull it out and it turns blue by the oxidation. And then you do it again until you have the right blue that you want. I would say that the change to thinking about functional art gave me the freedom to allow myself to continue working at the scale and also in the quantities that I wanted. Otherwise, I would feel like, oh, I shouldn't be working as much. As an artist, that's not exactly healthy for us. I don't know that my artwork in particular will contribute to environmental social change all by itself, but I do believe that part of my practice is also about building communities and building network, and really developing that practice is how I also am able to connect with other people, inspire, share knowledge. It's my form of social activism.
That is the voice of Iowa City artist Astrid Hilger Bennett. Our next NextGen journalist is Nick Jackson. He graduated from Drake University this spring. He studied English and sociology with a concentration in women's and gender studies. He is also a musician and works at Rogue Planet Music in Des Moines. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Charity.
So tell me about your hopes for a future in journalism, what do you want to do?
Well, I just love covering arts and culture, and I love the scene up here in Iowa City and the organizing everybody's doing. I think that deserves to be shared. People deserve to feel inspired and knowledgeable to what's going on. And so any part that I can do in bringing that spirit to people is something I want to pursue.
What drew you to NextGen?
My mom's a teacher, and she had a teacher friend that was working in Des Moines with IPR, and she recommended that I apply. And I'd mostly done more English major sort of writing, but I've done some coverage of the hardcore scene up here in Iowa City, and just wanted to hone my skill in journalistic writing, and this has certainly been a crash course in that.
So your piece focuses on the work of environmental and Ojibwe activist Jessica Engelking. With that focus of a moment of truth in your mind, how did you find Jessica Engelking?
Oh, I love talking with Jessica. The first time we met, she gave me a tour of the Resilience Hub up here in Iowa City.
With the Great Plains Action Society.
That's right. And she's the representation director there. And we just had a wonderful conversation, and she was so kind and so thoughtful. And when you first meet someone, there maybe is a little bit of some ice to break down. But Jessica made me feel really comfortable chatting with her, and she has this tradition. She's from Elkader, but every time she leaves Iowa City, she stops in at George's and has a burger before she leaves. And so she invited me, and any ice that was there just melted instantly. We were just sitting in a booth and had some burgers and ran into some friends, and it was really sweet.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment. I am talking with NextGen journalist Nick Jackson. We'll also hear his radio piece in a moment after we chat just a little bit more. This hour, we are meeting the young journalists who participated in NextGen Journalism at Iowa Public Radio last week. This is Talk of Iowa from IPR News. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. This hour, we are meeting the future of public media, aspiring journalists who recently participated in a 5-day workshop coordinated by NextGen Journalism, where they are paired with a professional mentor and learn how to report and produce non-narrated audio features and a companion multimedia story. Each participant was asked to produce a story that focuses on a moment of truth. And just before the break, I was talking with Nick Jackson, who recently graduated from Drake University. And Nick, we're going to hear your piece in just a moment. It focuses on the work of environmental and Ojibwe activist Jessica Engelking in Iowa City. I want to talk about this experience for you. I mean, it's been 5 days of hard work. It's a pretty intense experience. What was your biggest surprise from the week?
Well, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and I've learned a lot, and I've received a lot of good constructive criticism from my mentors and tried to take it in stride. I think probably the biggest challenge that I faced was photography, and I wish I would have come in with a camera of my own, but Aaron here was very kind to offer me a camera and just said, shoot on auto, and so I did. But when we got back after I had taken photos at the hub here in Iowa City, I realized that there were some settings on the camera that I didn't intend to be there. And so the takeaway is always check your equipment. My mentor Natalie has been a huge help in keeping me on track and meeting these deadlines. But we've finished it all up, and I feel very proud of the work that we've done. So.
You came into this wanting to learn more about journalism, and I get the sense that you're not entirely sure on how you want to put these skills into use. What do you think you are taking away from this experience?
I've certainly learned I've done written journalism before, but I've certainly learned a lot about multimedia journalism. I'd never done a non-narrative piece before. Again, with photography, that wasn't something that I was so well versed in. But I've really been able to add to those skills over the course of the week with the guidance of my mentors, and that's been really special and a wonderful learning experience.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for talking with me.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
NextGen journalist Nick Jackson, and now we're going to hear his piece. After seeing Indigenous people unified at Standing Rock, Jessica Engelking has nurtured resistance in Iowa. In her role as representation director at Great Plains Action Society, she challenges misrepresentations of Indigenous people in school curricula, hoping to inspire moments of truth in others.
Standing Rock was a pivotal moment in Indigenous modern history. It was the largest coming together of Indigenous people across the nation to really stand up as one and join together in a united fight. What was happening then was about the pipeline, sure, maybe, but more intentionally about hurting people by intentionally desecrating the sacred. And that's something that's long been used against Indigenous people. Hi, my name is Jessica Engelking. I'm the Representation Director for Great Plains Action Society. We are at the Great Plains Action Society's Community Resilience Hub in Iowa City. We're currently in the garden outside of our Healing Justice building. My first trip to Standing Rock was the September after it had begun in April of that year. So on the drive there, it was exciting and a little bit scary. The day we arrived was also the day that they brought out police dogs and used those against water protectors. So hearing about that physical aggression that people were being met with was something that we were, aware of going into the situation. We're constantly under attack. It's a daily thing. It's built into the fabric of our lives. But coming together really gave us a moment of realizing that we do have power. I think that Standing Rock showed what's possible when we all come together on this large scale. But from that, the realization that if we all take that home to our respective homes, that we can build microcosms of that. I would say that I experienced a moment of truth as I settled into my role as representation director here at Great Plains Action Society. And at first that was kind of scary because I didn't know what was possible, what we could create. But I think when that switched from being something scary to something liberating was a big moment of truth. In the past few years, I have sort of taken a return to education and being able to go into classrooms and talk with students about the work we do and about the way that we talk about Indigenous people in the classroom and what we can do to improve that. I have had the honor of seeing people experience moments of truth or realizations through my teaching. I think a lot of it comes from giving people permission and, in fact, encouraging them to question the structures that shape the world around them. Growing up Indigenous, you hear about other moments in time when people have come together, and there's always kind of a question, an open question as to whether or not that's something that we could do now. And seeing it in actuality really just affirmed the possibility of what we can do and what we are willing to do. And that's really what GPAS is a coming together of Indigenous people and non-Indigenous activist allies. We're able to create a beautiful space, where people can sit in the garden, a garden that will eventually feed the community.
That is the voice of Jessica Engelking, Representation Director at Great Plains Action Society based in Iowa City. This hour, we are meeting the participants of the NextGen Journalism training that took place at IPR last week. We're also listening to their work. Next up is Susanna Creighton, a commissions specialist in the insurance industry. Hello, Susanna.
Hello, how's it going?
Great. And so, Susanna, you're working in the insurance industry right now, but you're hoping to transition to journalism and multimedia work?
Yes, yeah. So I have never really had a clear direction for my career. I honestly just ended up doing insurance and commissions for right now, but I have always loved media. I've always loved journalism, and both my parents were journalists, so definitely big inspirations for that. But yeah, I just literally heard about this on the radio, decided, yeah, I'm going to apply. I'm going to see what happens.
Nice. Well, what makes you want to be a journalist right now?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the essential need for truth, and for that truth to be disseminated to everyone. And also, I want to write pieces. I want to talk with sensitivity and truth and beauty. And I think we need that now more than ever. And, that's why I want to transition, is because I want to provide something to my community. I want to do more.
And you do have some journalistic background personally, not just in the family. You wrote for the Iowa State Daily when you were in college?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was your focus?
So I was on the diversity desk. So I interviewed like the ASL teachers. I did a piece on Native American Heritage Month. I also wrote about Pitbull Day, I believe, or like Pitbull Awareness Day, which was, so I kind of went all over the board. But I had a lot of fun with writing there.
So NextGen is a pretty intense week of learning and work. What was your highlight of the week?
I think just being able to work with Katerina Sostarek was awesome. She is so cool. Everyone in the program is so cool. I honestly loved learning to work in Audition. I was very new to any sort of audio recording and mixing, and that was a skill that I was very excited to learn, and I think I have really gotten a lot of the beginner skills that I need, to continue to practice and work on my own.
Was there something that was particularly challenging for you during the week?
Photography. I think a lot of the visuals were tough for me. But I really learned the importance of slowing down, oddly enough, in a extremely fast-paced week, to get these stories pushed out. But, I think that I could have spent a little bit more time, with my subject and the visuals, getting those photos and really just experimenting with them, and getting more variety of visuals. I'm still very happy with, what I have. And, our visual editor was amazing in working with us on everything. But yeah, that was more challenging to me.
The theme this year is a moment of truth. And so you needed to identify a subject for your story and find their story about their moment of truth. How did you go about finding that person?
Yeah, so it was honestly a bit of a coincidence. My manager at my current job in doing commissions, she was very, very supportive of me, like doing this program. And I just asked her almost half jokingly, do you know anyone who would want to share like a very personal moment? And she said, honestly, my brother. Like, he's had a really intense story, but he's doing amazing now. And I think he would be great to talk to. So I said, yes, absolutely. We set up a phone call, and Rob was amazing to talk to. Like, he, opened up more and more as the phone conversation went on, and I ran with it. I thought, this is a really amazing story and to share. I think it would be perfect for the moment of truth.
Well, we'll listen to that story in just a moment and find out more about your subject. But as you're reflecting on the week at NextGen Journalism, what do you think you're taking away with you?
I think having a feeling of intention in my work and in the work that I want to do in the future, whether that's taking a breath and slowing things down to really capture what I want to portray, in writing, in photography, in audio. I want to make sure that I do that in a way that respects the subject, that respects, everyone listening to it, but conveys the message, that I want people to hear or see. And I think I have the proper tools, to really be able to hone those skills now.
Susanna, thank you so much for talking with me, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Charity.
Now we're going to hear Susanna Creighton's piece. After finding himself drunk in the back of a police van, Rob Prohaska felt a sense of relief for the first time since trying to get sober. He knew from that moment on he would have a chance to recover from addiction and grow his life back from the ground up. Now 15 years sober, Rob owns 2 small businesses and shares a message of hope through his recovery.
I got into a car accident, my fault, 100%. I was completely drunk. I was put in a paddy wagon, and when I was in there, I didn't feel any of the normal like fear or anger or panic that comes. I've been arrested probably 13 times, and I didn't have any of those normal reactions, the victim mentality. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. My name's Rob Prohaska. We are on my property, my home. It's an acreage here, 2 acres, just south of Des Moines in Norwalk. When I was a kid, I was an only child, just my mom and I think I was like 5 years old, and she asked what I wanted for my birthday, and I said a brother. Well, eventually, she got married, and he had 2 sons. And so I had my brother Josh, my brother John. So when I was a senior in high school, my older brother Josh, he got shot by a friend of his, and he killed him. I stopped caring whether I lived or died. I just didn't believe that I was long-term, right? 5 years later, I was living in Iowa City, just not going to school or anything, just there working a menial job so that I could party. And my younger brother, got in a car accident, John, and died. And it was alcohol related. So, that like kind of took the wind out of me. It took a lot of that like anger that I had from my older brother being murdered and turned it into sadness. I became an alcoholic. I have a super addictive personality. Once it became aware to me, once someone pointed it out and got it through, I started going to treatment, trying to stop, rehab. I'd get 6 weeks, 6 months. Nothing would stick. I would relapse, and each time would be worse and darker and scarier and more hopeless. And so that moment in the back of the paddy wagon just always stands out to me as like a real moment of clarity for me. And oddly enough, I was probably blackout drunk, moments before that, but the shock of the accident, the shock of the arrest kind of snapped me out of it enough. And again, just instead of feeling upset about it, I felt relief. And then I ended up at the Fort. The Fort is a correctional facility it's a work release program. I just did every single thing that they asked me to do constantly. It was a full surrender. I think the same thing that kept me drunk allowed me to push through an insane hangover and party again the next day. It's kind of the same thing that helped me get sober. Just that like inability to quit, that same kind of fight. It's the same thing that makes me successful now. I own 2 small businesses, hot sauce company, Brown Dogs Farm, that's 8 years old, and a food truck, Hotel Luna. We do Italian food. I do think that, not in every way, but I do think that I'm becoming much more like the person my grandfather was than the person that I was 15 years ago. My grandpa lived to 99 years old. He died just a couple years ago, and he's awesome. just like the most salt of the earth guy. And my grandma too. They had an acreage really similar to this. You know, he'd have a huge garden and he'd plant corn. He'd take me in an old blue pickup truck and we'd go sell it. That's probably where I learned about small business. It's where I learned about like connection to the community. He was always like the beacon, right? The North Star. You know, if I could just get to living a life like that, things are gonna be great. If I could just cut loose of this anchor that is literally drowning me, I'm gonna swim. You know, I'm gonna swim. And that's what's happened.
That is the voice of Rob Prohaska, marking 15 years of sobriety. This hour, we are meeting the aspiring journalists who participated in NextGen Journalism at IPR last week and listening to their work. You can see the journalists' multimedia projects at nextgenradio.org. More in a moment. This is Talk of Iowa from IPR News. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. This hour, we are meeting the future of public media, aspiring journalists who participated in a 5-day workshop coordinated by NextGen Journalism. They were paired with a professional mentor, and they learned how to report and produce non-narrated audio features and multimedia stories. Each participant was asked to produce a story that focuses on a moment of truth. Now we are meeting these journalists and listening to their work. Next up is Joanna Wong. She is a rising senior at Drake University, majoring in public relations and strategic political communications. Hello, Joanna.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. And what made you want to participate in NextGen Journalism?
Well, I originally heard about this opportunity from someone at the School of Journalism at Drake, and I just felt like I was really drawn to the program because of the kind of one-on-one opportunity I would have to work with professional journalism in this field. And so that's really what drew me to it. And so I applied and was just kind of like shocked when I got the email saying that I was accepted. And it's just been it's been a journey, but it's been one where I've learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about really what it takes to become a journalist. And I feel like through this process, I've just kind of fallen in love with journalism even more.
So you work as a freelance photographer. You also spend time volunteering with organizations who support people experiencing homelessness. How has that driven your interest in storytelling and journalism?
I think it's connected me a lot more to my community, and I think it's just kind of opened my eyes up to the different lives happening around me. I think being involved with different organizations that help with the unhoused community has given me more of a heart for people, and realizing that when I produce stories, like there's a real person behind that story. And I think it's just helped me take it to heart more. What I do here, the stories that I take in has really just given me a bigger heart for storytelling and representing other people well.
I mentioned that you're majoring in public relations. Does this make you feel like maybe journalism is the direction you want to go in?
I think so. I love working with other people, and so I think that's originally why I fell in love with journalism. Was I loved writing and creating, but it was just kind of that connection that I have with people that really made me want to pursue this.
So NextGen is a really intense week of work. What was your biggest challenge of the week?
My biggest challenge of the week was accepting that not everything has to be perfect the first time around. When I came back from the field after interviewing my subject and my story, I was given about 30 minutes to just dump everything I remembered from that interview onto a piece of paper. And that was hard for me because I wanted to sit there and make everything perfect at the beginning. And so learning to set those boundaries for myself of just doing things and getting things done, even if it doesn't seem perfect to me, as there's so many other opportunities to perfect a story or to share it. And I think embracing the fact that things don't have to be as flawless as I want it to be the first time around really, really grew me and just gave me a greater appreciation for journalism, and it kind of took some pressure off of myself to have to always be perfect, but to enjoy the process and to still do things and share stories, even if I don't feel like it's as perfect as I want it to be.
Joyanna, thank you so much for talking with me, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Joyanna Wong is a rising senior at Drake University, and now we are going to listen to the piece she produced this week. Becky Massman's corporate career came to an end in January of 2026 when she decided to expand her macaron bakery and start a shared-use kitchen in Newton, Iowa. She is now leading the way for small food business owners and impacting her community through the support of her businesses.
So 2025 was all about light bulb moments. But really the moment that said, let's go, was quitting my day job. A whole gamut of emotions there. What am I doing? Like, I've got to be crazy for doing this. Hi, my name is Becky Massman. I'm the owner of Carpe Macaron, a micro bakery in Newton, Iowa, as well as Newton Commercial Kitchen. So every time I'm going to set up, I start with my eggs because the eggs need to be at room temperature to make better meringue. I measure all of these things out, and I'm going to sift the almond flour and powdered sugar together. So my macarons, I would say that's what I'm known for, is having very flavorful fillings. Recently, my most popular has been pink lemonade, and it's a raspberry buttercream, and then I fill the center of the cookie with lemon curd. In 2021, I had a friend getting married, and for her bridal shower, I was in charge of all the food. Justine loved macarons, so we for sure put them on our menu. And that event led me to giving some leftovers to another friend, who then hired me for their daughter's baby shower, and then it really just kept growing. During my career, I spent close to 20 years as an accountant in various sized organizations and types of roles. But in 2022, I said, you know what? I think there's enough going on here that I could make this an actual business. So I started growing that through a monthly subscription box. And when that was going well, I started looking for pop-up options. I hit a point in 2025 where I realized I'm expanding. I can't run out of a home kitchen forever at the volume I'm growing to. And that's when I learned that there's really not a lot of spaces in Iowa for businesses to scale into without making the investment for themselves. So that got me thinking, how could I do this? That led me to the very beginning ideas of Newton Commercial Kitchen. The goal really is to have a space that people can be successful in and eventually graduate out of. I've always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I grew up with a family that was always pursuing various small businesses. My mom in particular, also a baker. So I grew up seeing that happen, and that's always was in my mind. But then when I went into the corporate world, I got bogged down with a lot of the risks. Leaving my corporate job, there's definitely sacrifices for sure. Going from a regular paycheck, set benefits, more specific hours, and set duties, that takes a lot of planning. And I would say probably the first 60, 90 days after I left my day job was just trying to figure out every day what needs to be done. What's my new routine look like? Deciding to quit my job was just this amazing release that said, you know what, you've had all these thoughts, you can finally act on them and finally go. There's days where it's like, what am I doing? But I've been finding amazing help along the way. One thing I would want everybody to know is you don't have to go on a linear timeline. It's not you're going to go from point A to point B to C. You can make all the plans you want, but for me, learning to plan for flexibility and to just have the knowledge really made me feel like I was lucky because I was ready to act when the opportunities appeared.
That is the voice of entrepreneur Becky Massman of Newton, Iowa. And today we're meeting the participants in the NextGen Journalism Project that took place last week at IPR. Our final aspiring journalist is Lily Fleming, a rising junior at Drake University, studying multimedia journalism and psychology with a minor in Spanish. Hello, Lily.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you here. And you are studying journalism. You've been working as a student journalist at Drake University. What excites you about journalism right now?
I feel like what I love about writing is that it's like finding the moments in life that are meaningful and kind of applying meaning to life, but it's like talking about stories and things that have happened in people's life that connect people, that people can resonate with. And then in journalism, it's telling other people's stories, and other people have a lot of experiences, so there's a lot of storytelling to be done.
Yeah. When did you decide you wanted to become a journalist?
So when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I was like introduced to creative writing like at 9 years old. I was like, oh, that's so cool because I love reading. So I want to like do creative writing. And then I was introduced to journalism in 9th grade. And it was like, oh, this is different, but I like this a lot. And then I continued doing journalism throughout high school on the newspaper. And then, yeah, I just pursued it in college, and it's what I'm doing now, and I like it a lot.
So this week, it's a really intense week that you've just been through. What was your highlight? What was your favorite thing about NextGen Journalism?
Going into it, I knew that like the thing I was looking forward to the most about it was the chance to work in a real newsroom for the first time and dedicate the entire week and the entire day of each day of that week to just journalism and pouring so much energy and time and commitment into one story. And so I was that was my favorite part. But what I didn't expect about the newsroom was like the culture of work and like how there are so many journalists putting their own contributed pieces into telling a good story that is meaningful, and like everybody cares so deeply. And yeah,
that's my favorite part about the work too. So we're on the same page there for sure. And you needed to find a moment of truth, and we're going to hear your story in just a moment. How did you find the subject that you profile in your story?
Yeah, actually, my mom is a longtime Iowa lobbyist. So she had spoken with the subject at the Capitol. They'd been introduced through mutuals. And when I reached out to my subject, May, I didn't tell her who my mom was. But then she was like, oh, wait, you're Amy's daughter? Like, you should have just said that. And then I would have said yes right away. But I'm glad it all worked out.
Nice. Well, we are going to listen to that story. And Lily, thank you so much for talking with me, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Studying multimedia journalism and psychology with a minor in Spanish. And now we're going to listen to the piece she produced with NextGen Journalism. Burdened by a lifetime of limitations as a woman in Iran, May Deganian's transition to the United States helped her realize that she can be safe and free. Since enrolling in Iowa State University's doctoral program, her life is defined by lighter moments like the sunshine on her skin.
That would be realization that I really feel like I have to tell everyone. I would definitely say the first time I wore shorts in public. And the first time my mom was not around me, my family was not around me, there was no morality police or Islamic police trying to pursue me. I was myself choosing for myself, for my body, what to wear. Hello, I'm May Deganian, and I'm a student here at Iowa State University. I came here 4 years ago from Iran. It was here in Iowa, and I do even remember which bus stop in Ames it was. It was near my dorm. It was summer, very humid. I was like, I'm gonna wear shorts. And I wore shorts, and it was the most liberating, beautiful experience ever. It was definitely the very first time even the sun hitting my skin, because, otherwise it's covered. And it feels so good. I can tell you about that. I used to teach speech at Iowa State. And I always told my students I teach speech. It's very ironic because I'm from Iran and we can't have freedom of speech. For me personally, it was just, I would say, suffocating. It was like I felt every day like I'm choked by rules and by restrictions. And I felt so insecure and threatened every single day as a woman, as a person. My sister was like 12, 14-ish, not more. And she came home crying one day. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was telling me I got off the bus or something like that from school. It was like this guy touched me inappropriately and also called me names of something like that. It was really hard for her as a first time being on her own, going back and forth to school. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. And my mom was like, what's wrong? And she told my mom about it. And my mom was like, maybe you did something immodest. Maybe you were not wearing modest clothes. And she was in school clothes. And my sister really hated that statement from her. If somebody harassed me, I would never bother telling my mom because I knew she would blame me. And then you internalize that. So you will be quiet. You never tell anyone. You never tell officials because you're like, whatever, they don't care. And then you internalize all that pain. But it's so interesting because that pain does not end with you when your life ends. Your daughters, your generation is going to inherit that. And then it's going to be generational pain. I remember it was like music videos that I watched. And at that time, they used to call it satellite dishes. And it kind of connected you with American channels, European channels. And guess what you saw? The first thing you saw was a woman without a job. It was a fashion show, fashion runway with a woman that was having a very skin showing, clothes. And I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. This is so interesting. Look at her. I remember at that time it was Britney Spears, Rihanna, and I tried so hard to learn English to see what they're saying, and I memorized every single bit of what they were saying. That's how I improved my English, and that was the door that opened, that I was like, I just want to get out of this world. I just want to experience a different world. I never had the freedom of expression. I always have been silent in every single way, my personal life, my needs, my everything, And then when I came to America, I began to talk and feel so comfortable. And people even loved me for that. People here appreciate you being authentic. And that was the most enjoyable feeling I've ever had when I came to America. And every other little acts of freedom that I did since then, made me the person that I am today and made me enjoy life more.
That is the voice of May Daghanian, a doctoral candidate at Iowa State University who immigrated to the U.S. from Iran. This hour, we've been getting to know the aspiring journalists who participated in NextGen Journalism at IPR last week and listening to their work. You can see the journalists' multimedia projects at nextgenradio.org. Talk of Iowa is a production of IPR News. Our producers are Danny Gear, Caitlin Troutman, and Samantha McIntosh. Our digital producer is Natalie Dunlap, and our production assistant is Nev Kelly. This is Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe.